Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Storm Chaser Coaching Forecast Show for Tuesday, May 26th. This is a show talking about the forecast as it is relevant for storm chasers and storm chasing enthusiasts. I'm Gabriel Harber, and I've got Stephen Cross, our junior coach here at Storm Chaser Coaching, ready to share with me his thoughts on today's setup. Stephen, I see you've got the simulated reflectivity already pulled up. I'm sure you're going to get a barrage of comments about that. But it's necessary because from what you were explaining to me earlier, it looks like this is really going to be a setup that hinges on whether or not we have early day convection.
Yeah, the SIMREF is really important for this setup. I don't usually like to start with it, but it is an important thing to note. Early day convection will be a concern tomorrow. Here's our SPC risk. You can see that maximized tornado potential around Fort Stockton into the southeast. And if you take a look, we have a massive MCS that has already moved through our risk area, just south and east of Fort Stockton there. And this is only 2 p.m., so this stuff would initiate in the morning and early afternoon hours and move to the east, and that would basically wash out our entire sector, our warm sector, for supercell development later on in the day. And this wasn't a trend we were really seeing earlier on the models. You can see if we go to 18Z, that MCS is way further north. Same with 12Z.
Completely cleared out there, man.
Completely cleared out. And so just these latest runs on the HRRR is very, very important to note. And the reason we're getting that is I was looking at the shortwave timing. Our main initiation for storms is going to be that mid-level shortwave. It's those winds aloft that come speeding over, and they come over the Davis Mountains here. And what happens is you get this orographic lift along the Davis Mountains in southwest Texas, and that basically, the warm air goes up the mountains and it forms clouds and turns into storms. And that's what orographic lift is. And so what's happening is we're getting this shortwave to help aid in that orographic lift. But you can see here, if we compare the shortwave at 4 p.m., you can see it's all the way over here towards San Angelo. But if we look at the past runs, it's way back here, back towards Fort Stockton, and way less aggressive. So that shortwave on the HRRR is trending a lot faster, which is resulting in early morning convection, which could completely wash out our warm sector. So if we look at our temperatures, you can see we're completely washed out. These past runs, we have very warm temperatures. We don't have any morning convection here. We would probably have some decent tornado potential. But as we go into the 0Z run, the 7 p.m. run from today, that warm sector is completely washed out. So that's something really important that we have to note.
By the way, if you guys are wondering what this awesome tool is that Stephen is using to pull up these different model runs, that is actually the WeatherFront desktop app. It has not quite been released yet, but I'm sure unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard all the buzz about WeatherFront. Lots of content creators, including Max Velocity, are using WeatherFront right now, and you will be able to do so as well on your desktop computer very soon. And I've heard from a little birdie, Android is likely coming out within the next few months as well. So all of the prayers have been answered. I know that's the number one question that they get is, when is Android finally coming out so that I can use it on my device? Frankly, you all shouldn't have been using Android anyways, iPhone for life, but that's a different discussion for a different day. So, Stephen, we've talked about how early convection might spoil the day for storm chasers who are out there in the Texas panhandle-ish, southwestern area-ish, if that's a word. But if there is convection, is there any potential for an outflow boundary or two that they might want to keep an eye on?
Yeah, so outflow boundaries will be really important for early day focused tornado potential. The SBC did mention that we could get some synoptic support for tornadoes, which basically means the environment itself may support tornadoes. We might have enough spin in the environment if we can get a discrete supercell to support tornadoes alone. But if we don't get enough of that spin, which will come later in the evening, if our storms form earlier in the day, we won't have enough of that late day spin essentially to synoptically support tornadoes. So our main thing that we want to look for is outflow boundaries. Outflow boundaries can have spin along them, and that is a very common thing out here in Fort Stockton. We call it Fort Stocktoning. It's a very Fort Stockton thing. It just Fort Stockton magic. You get these supercells that come off the Davis Mountains. You can ingest an outflow boundary, and you can get tornadoes. And that will be something to monitor with the convection that happened today over there, and possibly the morning convection. There's a lot of ways this could play out, but even if we don't get robust supercell tornado genesis, like those classic pipes that you see, those rope tornadoes, even if we don't get that and we get washed out, there is still potential for all of this convection to produce landspout tornadoes. And I would not be surprised to see a couple of landspout tornadoes. We saw that up here towards Lubbock the other day. We had these big old dusty landspout tornadoes. We had a lot of tornado reports up there. I don't know. I think there was one of them that was actually like a real mesocyclonic tornado, but there was a lot of landspouts, and that was because we had a lot of convection, and all that convection was shooting off outflow boundaries, and we had landspouts spinning up all along these boundaries. And so that is something we could see tomorrow. It could be a lot of fun, even with over convection. We could see some landspout tornadoes for sure.
Now, you and I are probably going to differ on this opinion, Stephen, but that's okay, right?
Yeah.
You're allowed to be wrong. If you see a landspout tornado, you don't get to count it in your tornado count. You don't get to go update your Twitter profile and change it from like a 17 to an 18. It's just like how when you're playing basketball and you bank a three-pointer, it doesn't even really count for anything other than the actual score. I don't even think it should be included in the stats, but it's the same thing when you see a landspout tornado.
They are counted in the SPC tornado reports, and I know Cameron Nixon was talking about this today on Twitter and what you should report and what you shouldn't report, and it's a big controversy.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That was literally just my deranged thought process in the moment. But tell me more about this. What was going on today on weather Twitter with Cameron and talking about this?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't on Twitter too much today. It was my birthday, so I was kind of focusing on that. But I I don't know. It was something like, if does it have a wall cloud? Is it a gust NATO? Is it a land spout? Is it mesocyclonic? I didn't focus too much on the conversation, but it is definitely a big topic that gets brought up, I swear, every 5 minutes.
So one other thing I want to talk about in regards to this setup, it's a note that you had here that I thought was very interesting. You said the SRH, which is storm relative helicity, that might not happen until later in the day. Why is it important that these supercells remain discrete for as long as possible?
Let's take a look here. So you can see here, I'm using the 18Z HRRR because that 0Z, it was a big outlier, and it's very possible that we could get that morning day convection. But let's look at our low-level jet, 850 millibars. And you can see this is 1 p.m. We have a little bit of flow there, about 20 knots, and that begins to considerably increase in our area of interest here by 5 p.m. If we take a forecast sounding, we can see we have a decent amount of SRH. These low levels are a little bit stable, so that's a little concerning. It's going to be a very localized area. It's going to be kind of one of those go here dummy kind of days where the best thermodynamics are lining up down there. So don't focus too much on these thermodynamics, but our SRH should increase, and that is something that we want to focus for later in the day for kind of supercells to be able to spin efficiently on their own without any boundaries potentially. Oh wait, I forgot to do the href thing because I really do want to show that. So instead of
I'm leaving this in, by the way, just so you know.
Oh my God. All right. Come on, bro. You're not taking this out?
The more you ask if I'm taking it out, the more it's staying.
Quite frankly, Iran is so close to developing a nuclear weapon. Yeah, now you gotta take it out. So since there was a lot of discrepancy in our convection allowing models, our high-res models, I want to take a look at HREF. It's basically a combination of all our high-res models, and it gives us a good look at basically how they're trending and the agreement between all of them. And if we take a look at our low-level jet at 850 millibars, we can see in our area just southeast of Fort Stockton here, those purples, they start to increase a little bit throughout the evening. And if we can get the tail end Charlie, even a tail end Charlie along the MCS, basically the further south supercell, if we can get a discrete tail end Charlie along that convection, we could see some tornado potential increase, even without any boundaries, along I-10 here from Fort Stockton to Sheffield, Ozona, Ozona, I believe. And I do want to show you this, the probability of updraft helicity, and it is pinpointing some areas here, probably early day convection. The best tornado potential for tomorrow, the best outcome would be to monitor where that morning convection sets up. If it sets up north of I-10, then we're to go for this area southeast of Fort Stockton. If it sets up south of I-10, that could completely wash out our risk area. But HREF does have an interesting solution here. You can see those probability of updraft helicity kind of explode after 3 to 4 p.m. And we could see some discrete supercells here. There is a sign for discrete supercells just off the Davis Mountains, southeast of Fort Stockton. And if we don't have any morning day or early morning convection, we could see some discrete supercells in the 3 to 6 p.m. time frame with an all hazards risk, including giant hail, tornadoes and damaging winds just southeast of Fort Stockton here.
Do you remember when we were doing some practice shows a couple of days ago? You said giant hail was too much, and I had to change it to large hail.
Did I say giant hail?
Yeah, you just said giant hail, so I'm calling you out right now, man.
Yeah, they have a SIG 2, or no, they don't have a SIG 2. I thought they did.
By the way, we're going to have to work on you getting all of these windows properly sized. This reminds me of that scene from Zoolander where he's looking at the model of the Center for Kids Who Can't Read, and he's getting really upset about it because the building is so small, but of course it's just the model. Your SPC is super tiny on the screen. Last thing I want to mention before we get off the air, the SPC mentioned there may be something happening all the way up on the other side of the country in Maine today. I'm sure you've already studied that situation. What do you have for us there?
I'm going to be so honest. I haven't even looked.
What?
I haven't even looked. But we'll go ahead and take a look. Maine could be worth a trip. Could be worth a trip.
Can you storm chase in Maine? There's bears in Maine, right? I don't know if that's
bears.
safe.
I think I would rather chase Dixie 100 times before I chase up there. It's so many trees up there in Maine. But we'll take a look at it.
So many trees.
Interesting. All right. You're really putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, I want to see your forecasting prowess in real time.
So we've got a nice trough coming through here, coming from Canada. Looks like a nice short wave coming through into Maine here. The dew points are going to be on the low side, the meager side up there in Maine, about mid to upper 50s. This is my very first look at it. So let's go ahead and see what HRRR is saying at 0Z. So we should have a nice pocket of instability up there in Maine from about 1 to 7 p.m. up there, and perhaps central to northern Maine. And that is pretty interesting. I'm intrigued by that. Looks like mainly large hail damaging wind risk.
That's a robust little hodograph for Maine.
I know, this isn't actually too bad. Decent instability. Dew points are on the low side, but spreads aren't the worst in some areas. They're not great here, but we have okay instability. This would mainly be a hail risk, damaging wind risk, but I don't really see much of a tornado risk materializing, but that is definitely not a bad hodograph up there in northern Maine. So northeast chasers, be on the lookout. Could get spicy up there with maybe some 50-mile-an-hour winds.
And I think the bears are going to appreciate you giving them a heads up as well. All right, Stephen, thank you for going over a forecast. This is our first show like this, so if you folks enjoyed it, leave a comment down below. And we will definitely be doing these more often, at least through the end of this storm chasing season. Remember to check out those links in the description below, and then watch another video.